In 1988, Jaguar stood before the world and made a promise that sounded almost impossible to keep. At the British Motor Show, the company unveiled a breathtaking concept called the XJ220, a futuristic supercar powered by a naturally aspirated V12 engine, equipped with permanent all-wheel drive, and designed to become the fastest road car on Earth. It looked like the future had arrived overnight. Wealthy collectors rushed to place deposits, automotive magazines declared it the next great British supercar, and expectations skyrocketed before a single production car had even been built. Everything about the concept suggested that Jaguar was preparing to challenge Ferrari, Porsche, and Lamborghini on completely new territory. But what almost nobody realized at the time was that the spectacular concept displayed under the bright lights of the motor show was still far from becoming a production automobile. Behind the scenes, Jaguar engineers were facing a problem that threatened the entire project. The massive V12 engine and complex all-wheel drive system made the car significantly heavier, more expensive, and increasingly difficult to certify for production. As development continued, engineers reached a difficult conclusion. If Jaguar wanted the XJ220 to become the world's fastest production car, it couldn't simply copy the concept. It needed to become something entirely different. The solution shocked almost everyone. The elegant V12 disappeared. The sophisticated all-wheel drive system disappeared with it. Instead, Jaguar chose a compact 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6 derived from the company's successful Group C racing program, sending power exclusively to the rear wheels through a 5-speed manual gearbox. From a purely engineering perspective, the decision made perfect sense. The lighter engine dramatically improved weight distribution, the simpler drivetrain reduced complexity, and the immense power delivered by the twin turbochargers gave the XJ220 the performance engineers had been chasing from the beginning. But engineering logic rarely satisfies disappointed customers. Many buyers believed they had paid deposits for a completely different car. Some attempted to cancel their orders. Others took Jaguar to court, arguing that the company had failed to deliver what had originally been promised. Before the XJ220 had even reached customers, it had already become one of the most controversial supercars ever created. Personally, I think that's what makes this story so fascinating. Most legendary cars become famous because they exceed expectations. The XJ220 became famous because people believed it had betrayed them. Yet history has a strange way of changing opinions. Sometimes the cars that receive the harshest criticism when they're new become the ones enthusiasts admire most decades later. And perhaps no supercar proves that better than the Jaguar XJ220. Despite the growing controversy, Jaguar refused to abandon its vision. The company believed performance would ultimately speak louder than promises. The production XJ220 featured an advanced aluminum honeycomb chassis, lightweight construction, sophisticated suspension, and a twin-turbocharged V6 producing around 542 horsepower, an astonishing figure for the early 1990s. Every engineering decision focused on one objective: building the fastest production car the world had ever seen. The styling remained remarkably close to the original concept, with its impossibly low profile, flowing bodywork, dramatic air intakes, and unmistakable silhouette. Even today, more than 30 years later, the XJ220 still looks like a machine that arrived from the future. But beautiful design alone wasn't enough to silence the critics. Jaguar had made a promise. Now it had to prove that the production car deserved its legendary name. The turning point came not in a courtroom, but on a high-speed test track. Jaguar knew that no press release could repair the damage caused by the V12 controversy. The only thing capable of changing the conversation was undeniable performance. When development drivers began pushing the XJ220 to its limits, the results were staggering. The twin-turbocharged V6 delivered relentless acceleration, the lightweight aluminum chassis remained remarkably stable at extreme speeds, and the car achieved something that suddenly made the missing V12 seem far less important: it became the fastest production car in the world. In 1992, the XJ220 reached approximately 212 miles per hour, surpassing every road-legal production car that had come before it. Think about that for a moment. The car people were calling a disappointment had just rewritten the record books. Personally, I think this is one of the greatest ironies in automotive history. Jaguar broke its original promise, but in doing so, it actually achieved the goal that mattered most. The company had promised a world-beating supercar, and that's exactly what it delivered. The problem was that many customers were still focused on what had been removed rather than what had been accomplished. The lawsuits continued, negative headlines followed the car everywhere, and the XJ220 entered production under a cloud of controversy that would have destroyed most supercars before they even reached their first owners. But then journalists started driving it. And the tone began to change. Test drivers discovered a machine that felt far more sophisticated than its critics expected. The steering was incredibly precise, high-speed stability was exceptional, and the twin-turbo V6 delivered explosive performance once the boost came alive. Unlike many early turbocharged supercars that felt crude or unpredictable, the XJ220 combined brutal speed with genuine composure. It was still demanding, of course. The cabin was tight, visibility wasn't ideal, and the car required respect at high speeds. But it no longer felt like a compromised concept car. It felt like a proper engineering masterpiece. Looking back today, it's fascinating how often enthusiasts forget that the V6 wasn't some ordinary replacement engine. It came directly from Jaguar's Group C racing program, where endurance racing had already proven its strength and efficiency. In many ways, the production XJ220 was actually closer to a road-going race car than the original V12 concept would have been. That racing connection became even more obvious when Tom Walkinshaw Racing developed the XJ220C competition version. The race car won its class at the 1993 24 Hours of Le Mans, although it was later disqualified due to a technical regulation issue. Even with the disqualification, the message was clear: the XJ220 had genuine motorsport credibility. It wasn't just a marketing exercise. It was a supercar capable of competing at the highest level of endurance racing. Unfortunately, the timing couldn't have been worse. The early 1990s global recession hit the exotic car market hard. Many buyers who had placed deposits during the economic boom no longer wanted or could afford the car, and Jaguar found itself with one of the most advanced supercars in the world but far fewer customers than expected. Only around 275 production cars were ultimately built, making the XJ220 dramatically rarer than many of its famous rivals. For years, that commercial failure overshadowed the car's technical achievements. Prices fell, collectors overlooked it, and the XJ220 developed a reputation as the supercar nobody wanted. But time has a way of changing perspectives. As modern supercars became increasingly digital, hybridized, and dependent on electronic systems, enthusiasts began looking back at the XJ220 with fresh eyes. They saw a manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, a lightweight aluminum chassis, a racing-derived twin-turbo engine, and a car capable of over 200 miles per hour without relying on the layers of software that define modern hypercars. Slowly, the narrative began to reverse. The car that once seemed like a broken promise started to look like one of the purest analog supercars of its era. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that Jaguar never got the chance to build another one. The XJ220 wasn't the beginning of a supercar dynasty, it was a brilliant, controversial, and ultimately irreplaceable moment in British automotive history. History has a remarkable habit of correcting first impressions. Cars that are celebrated on the day they're launched sometimes fade into obscurity, while others spend years carrying the weight of criticism before finally receiving the respect they always deserved. The Jaguar XJ220 belongs firmly to the second group. It entered the world surrounded by controversy, disappointed expectations, and courtroom battles. Many people never gave it the chance to be judged for what it actually was because they couldn't forget what it was originally supposed to be. Personally, I think that's one of the greatest tragedies in automotive history. The XJ220 wasn't a failure because it lacked performance. It wasn't a failure because it was poorly engineered. In fact, it was one of the most advanced and capable supercars of its generation. Its only real mistake was asking people to accept change when they had already fallen in love with a dream. Yet if we remove the emotion and simply look at the engineering, the picture becomes very different. Jaguar built a lightweight aluminum supercar with a racing-derived twin-turbocharged engine, a 6-speed-worthy driving experience through its precise 5-speed manual gearbox, breathtaking aerodynamics, and enough performance to become the fastest production car in the world. Very few manufacturers can honestly say they achieved a world record with their flagship model. Jaguar did exactly that. And more importantly, it did so by trusting its engineers instead of its marketing department. Today, more than 30 years later, collectors no longer argue about the missing V12. They admire the car that actually exists. Values have climbed dramatically, enthusiasts travel across the world just to see one in person, and many automotive journalists now describe the XJ220 as one of the greatest supercars the 1990s ever produced. Time didn't erase the controversy, it simply placed it into perspective. The broken promise became only one chapter of a much larger story. The engineering brilliance, the incredible performance, and the courage to build something different ultimately became far more important than the disappointment that surrounded its launch. Looking back now, it's almost impossible not to wonder what might have happened if Jaguar had introduced the production car first and the concept second. Perhaps the XJ220 would have been remembered very differently from the very beginning. But maybe its difficult journey is exactly what makes it so fascinating today. Some legends are born through instant success. Others are forged through years of misunderstanding before the world finally recognizes their true value. The Jaguar XJ220 didn't become legendary because it kept every promise. It became legendary because, despite breaking them, it still accomplished something extraordinary. It proved that the greatest supercars are remembered not for the expectations they create, but for the legacy they leave behind. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more stories about the world's most legendary automobiles. Every subscription helps the channel continue bringing these incredible automotive stories back to life. And now I'd love to hear your opinion. If you had the opportunity to own one iconic 1990s supercar, would you choose the Jaguar XJ220, the McLaren F1, the Ferrari F40, or the Porsche Carrera GT? Let me know your choice and the reason behind it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next documentary.